Previously on agentpalmer.com, don't copy Xerox's errors as told in Fumbling the Future. 2023, maybe I'll catch up later. And yes, Zapata and I are still continuing the conversation, even away from the microphones. This is the Palmer Files, episode 114, featuring Miguel Bolivar, a marching band director who is here because I have some things to say. From my blanket apology to start the conversation to discussing all of the bands and the roles they have in forming better habits and music in general to the importance of arts education in high school and much, much more. Are you ready? Let's do the show! Hello and welcome to the Palmer Files. I'm your host, Jason Stershik, also known as Agent Palmer, and on this 114th episode is Miguel Bolivar, who I invited on the show because I wanted to talk to a band director, and Eric Smith, the guest from episode 108, introduced me to Miguel as the two of them grew up together. So I have some things I wanted to talk to a band director about, but after that, we talk about the importance of music in our formative years and how that has developed since. We discuss what it's like being in a band, from marching to jazz to pep and even garage, and performing bands. If you were a member of a band or knew a member of the band or were just curious why all those kids were hanging out in the band room, you should sit back and enjoy this conversation. But first, remember, if you want to discuss the episode as you listen or afterwards, you can find all related ways to contact myself and my guest, Miguel Bolivar, in the show notes. Don't forget, you can see all of my writings and rantings on agentpalmer.com. And of course, email can be sent to thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. So without further ado, let's strike up the band. Miguel, all I know about you is that you're a band director. So I'm going to start by explaining who I am. But not now. I'm going to explain who I was, right? I was in your marching band, okay? I was in your marching band. I played tenor saxophone. And I still classify lower brass as the troublemakers of the band, okay? That's I don't know if that's changed, but that's
correct.
Hi, that's me. And then I was also in symphonic band. It was just that you had to be in that at a certain point. I don't think there's any way. I was also in jazz band, and I was also in pep band. I was in all four of the bands. And when I went home, in a few garage bands of sort. Okay, so I am that guy, but I'm not just that guy, because when we're in the stands at the football game, I happen to be one of those dimensional beings that likes music, band, and the football game that's actually happening. Okay. So like my band director back in the day used to yell at me for paying attention to the football game that we were at. Okay. That was my cross to bear. This is who I am. Now, granted, in full disclosure, I spent 2.5 years in high school because of a semester abroad and an early admit into college. So I didn't spend a lot of time in the marching band and all of those bands I just mentioned, but this is who I was. And I have to say that even in that short time, despite the fact that pep band might be my favorite because we were on our own to do as we wished at basketball games, which is a different thing. And this is who I am. And I still remember, like, show up early. If you're on time, you're late, which I also got from my cross country coach, but that's a whole different thing. Like, I remember, like, core principles of my being that, look, tenor saxophone that I had is still in my house. I haven't touched it in over a decade, but I just cannot get rid of it. And I feel like part of that is because there was something instilled in me, and you are the band director I know, sitting across from me now, that I can say this to, that there was something from those days. Like, I know it's cliche, the whole band getting up at the end of Revenge of the Nerds, but like, I feel like I learned so much in just that truncated time in all those different bands, even the stuff that wasn't mostly non-musical stuff. And I just want to say, as older me, because I was very obnoxious back then, I want to thank you for doing what you do, because it is like the work of the angels. Like we need more band members out there. And I just want to say thank you, because I feel like I owe it to all of the band directors I've ever had to apologize to someone.
Yeah, it's a thankless job, you know. You work real hard, and I guess, to be honest, like the whole point of being a band teacher for me, or band director, is to get that, which is what you're saying. Just, I learned so many life lessons. I had so many great experiences. Right? I would love all my students to play in the New York Philharmonic. We all know that's not going to happen. You know, I would love for all of them to be super famous musicians. And some of them have gone on tours and have gone to Juilliard Prep and done all that stuff. And that's also really, like, I'm proud of those students. But I'm also proud of the ones like yourself who just, like, have the instrument and have a very, like, special place in their heart for what their program was like, and bought into the culture. And even if they were a scutch, they were there all the time. And they, like, you know, like, you're the kid that, like, you know, funny enough, makes you come back to your job every day, because there's plenty of other stuff that makes you feel the opposite, right? It's like, you know, getting asked to a board meeting like 3 days beforehand. You have to bring your 105-piece marching band somehow there, and all your equipment is spread across the district. That's not the stuff that makes you want to come back. So that's interesting. And I mean, so you did marching band. Which one's you said pep band was your favorite, right?
Yeah. Well, that was just because it was not, I guess, sanctioned. Like it was like when I only did it for 2 years, because it was only in high school. And I believe it was like one of the assistant band directors was our advisor, but it was up to the upperclassmen, or the senior most upperclassmen, which sometimes was only a junior, who was in the pep band to arrange the music or figure out what was on the place. You know, it was very, like, more club based than organized. And I think part of it was, you know, you learn a lot from your peers, and you learn a lot. And it was, you know, as I go down, and marching and symphonic are probably equal, but then jazz band's a little bit smaller. And then pep band was the smallest one I was a part of. And I think, I don't know, there was just that camaraderie, because, like, let's be real, everybody who was in the pep band was also in all of the other, like, it's a funnel, right? There was just something about that was just like, we're on our own. This is what we do, you know. And I'm a sports guy too, but, like, outside of baseball, my sport's college football. Right. And I remember going to Lehigh University football games and sitting with friends that were 7-8 decade older than me, who were in the band, and sitting in the band section with them. And I think part of it was they had such look, I know it's not the same as high school, but they had such an amazing experience on those Saturday afternoons, marching in the band and then just playing ridiculous songs from the stands. And there was just something about that always, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I didn't know it at the time. Like, this is based on memory and reflection. At the time, I was just an idiot who was like, I like this. You know what I mean? Like, I had no, I'll be honest. I don't think I was I think when you get students that come back to you, I'm the reason you go to work. But at the time, I had no respect for you. If I, you know, like, I can't lie to you. Absolutely, I was the kid who was cracking jokes in the back. Like,
right, but you kept coming back, right?
Yeah,
and you kept showing up, and that's the thing. Like, that doesn't go unnoticed. You know, like, I know for me, like, I have a couple of kids they pretend to be super dedicated, but they show up late and they don't come to things, and I never can find them. Like, those are the kids where I'm just like, they're not really in it. But there's some kids that are like, a pain in my butt, but they're always there. If I needed my car washed, I know I could just throw a sponge at them and they'd figure it out. I mean, I don't do that.
Yeah,
But you know
sure.
what I'm saying? Like, I just know that they're hardcore and they're on the team. They just don't want to show it, right? Some of that is just being a kid, right? Like, everyone wants to belong, but wants to be unique. Everyone wants a group of friends, but they also want to be popular and, you know, not need anybody else. So it's like this very like thin line that I feel like high schoolers specifically walk, you know, as they decide what they like and what they don't like. Yeah. And I think they're afraid to say that. Sometimes they're afraid to say this band is what I like, you know, band is my thing, you know, because it might not be cool. I mean, in my school, it was cool. Like, I'm actually teaching at my alma mater. So
It was not cool. I want to say, because it wasn't cool at my school up to a point. Now, listen, I wasn't there my second half of my junior year, and I wasn't there my senior year. But from the experience of an underclassman, the seniors, at the very least, when I was a freshman and sophomore, the seniors didn't care. You know, like they were like, "Hey, I'm excited. I want to go to Penn State and be in the blue band." Like, and they were not apologetic about that. Like the seniors that I like, you know, looked up to in essence, because you learn a lot from those section leaders. I think it was their like not caring. Like, they were called band geeks, but it's like, I don't care. I'm going to go to Penn State and play in the blue band. Like, that's what I want to do. And these were the people that were sitting next to me that were, you know, 1 or 2 years older, but might as well have been like parents. You know, they're laying it down, and I
spent so much time with them too.
And it was their, I don't know, like their respect for what they wanted, I think, that kind of infused it.
Leadership is a big deal, especially in band and marching band and all that stuff. I picked them very carefully because they either spread like a wonderful like culture or a disease.
Yeah.
So your band director did a good job, because they are inspiring people. Regardless of what their attitude is, they figured out how to inspire the underclassmen. That's kind of hard. That's hard to do in general, right? Kids are combative when you're younger, right? They're testing their boundaries. Right? Yeah. They look at a puppy, right? Yeah. They're trying to figure out what the deal is, you know, and it's also mixed into that, like hormones, and mix into that like family stuff, right? Because I'm sure like no teenager loves their mom and dad at that point. So there's like a whole rebellion going on inwards and outwards, right? So like you're changing, you're growing. So like all this is happening, and then there's one person that's in charge of you that's saying, hey, play this one funny song, or like pick up your instrument and practice and things like that. So trying to ride that line, you know, it's a special place to ride, and some people are really good at it, and some people are not. Some people are drawn to certain teachers, and some teachers like.
Yeah, I mean, it amazes me how the farther I get from it, the more fondly I look back on it.
Yeah.
And look, I went to a very small college on an early admittance that didn't have a band. Mm-hmm. So it was over for me. You know, when I went abroad the second half of my junior year, I was done. Like, obviously I've picked up the saxophone since then, not in a decade, but obviously since then, just here and there. But, you know, it was over for me. I'd like to think that there's an alternate world where, like, I probably go like, oh, there's a pep band here. Yeah. I've got a horn, right? Like, I feel like that's probably a thing I would have continued.
Yeah. Like an adult band thing. Like they do in, kind of like what they do with what is it for the Ravens? Yep. They have a marching band. It's just random people that just pick up instruments and learn stuff, or their drum line or something like that. I'm not sure what they do, but it's you know, you teach it so that the kids sound good. You teach it so that you can compete, because like my marching band competes and all that stuff. So like you do it for all of that stuff, but you also do it to kind of teach them how to like organize by themselves, how to solve problems, how to deal with each other, how to blend, and how to make sure that everything's going to be all right. Like it's what drew me into it, right? I personally, I loved band, and I remember I So I also am a saxophonist. So was Eric. Actually, Eric was a saxophonist in the ska band. I don't know if he told you that.
No, he didn't.
Oh yeah, it's a much kept secret. He played the ska. He was actually really good. So the two of us, we played it in our bands and we had a great time. And then it just was for me like once I got into more band and music stuff, I was like the experiment child of my kids. So there's three. I have two siblings. I was the experiment child of the three. They were like, they didn't give the older one the use of instruments, and they were like, oh, let's see if the boy, he's made out of rubber, so he'll be fine if instruments doesn't work out. So I did, and I tried it, right, and I loved it. So I started on clarinet. I went to saxophone. I was also a saxophonist, and then it just was something that I felt when I played the instrument that I didn't feel anywhere else. Like I got into some like pre-med thing and I just declined it because I was like, I don't want to cut people open. I'm squeamish. I don't want to do any of that. It's too much responsibility. I just want to play my instrument. So I played my instrument and then I got some guidance at my school where they were like, the guy was like, look, man, I know you want to be an arranger. I wanted to write and arrange. I arranged all the music for my saxophone quartet in high school.
Oh, nice.
Which is funny enough, still at my high school and still gets played.
Oh,
there.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So like we were there and so I did that, and then one of the guys was like, listen, I'm an arranger, but I also teach. You should go get your teaching degree. I see how you are around people. Like, why don't you try it out? Like, worst case scenario, you don't like it, but you end up pursuing your other degree. And it turns out that like he's that guy won a Tony Award, but he was working in my school district. I didn't know until after the fact. Like, I was like incredibly gifted, right? So then I did, and I just went along and I kept writing for marching band, and I kept doing the music thing. And then, it just till this day, I still perform regularly. Like I have 3 gigs this weekend. I'm doing a double on Saturday and one on Sunday. And like when I play my instrument, it just makes me feel like nothing else.
I think that, so I never took this path. But like there was a time before my semester abroad when I was seriously talking to my, I think a legit band director, not the assistant director who did a lot of the work with us often, but like the main band director about his alma mater, which was, I want to say Lebanon Valley College. Because it was one of those things where I had told him, I don't know if I give that much care about music theory, which is a course that an elective I did take in high school. Mm-hmm. But I said, I am doing this thing on the weekends and at nights with this Tascam Porta Studio for these cover bands and rock bands. And I think I want to go for sound design, like sound engineering. Yeah, and he's like, you could do that at my alma mater. And it was a conversation we had, and it never panned out. I mean, now I run a podcast and I do audio editing and I run a mixer. And, since then in college, I ran sound and like theater and stuff. But like, it was the one thing from like back then. It was the one decision I ever made that like really didn't pan out, but kind of ended up anyway. Like I'm sitting here talking to you. I got a mixer next to me and yeah, it's only you and me. It's 2 channels, but if I needed to plug in anything else, I'm good to go. Like if I want to go down to my basement, with a few amps, a bunch of guitars, and an electronic drum kit that I got down there, I can record. Like, I just need bodies. Like, and I didn't go to school for it, but like it was there. Like there's a world where that's a thing that I was like, I think I might. And he was like, if you want to do that, you really still should learn theory. And it's still like the big like regret. And I've been thinking about it recently.
Interesting.
And I don't mean recently because it's the new year and I've been thinking about it for the last 2 years is like, do I pick up the piano? Like, do I pick up the keyboard in a way where like, I don't need to write anything, but I feel like it's the only instrument that I kind of want to play that I can't.
Yeah, it's a tough instrument. It's a bear. Like I'm playing the piano now for my choir, and I didn't have to learn that fast. So I can read chords, I get through, but they call it the mother instrument for a reason, right? And that's because like you can see the theory, like you can actually see.
Yeah, you could see. I mean, that's why they teach theory on it, is because like it's not like a guitar where like it's like this can be this or this. It's like, no, it's right here.
Yeah, it's
all laid out.
Way to understand it, so like, you go through it in order so you can teach the music theory. But I mean, on the other hand, I love music theory. Like I'm like AP theory certified. Like I loved all that stuff. Like I got a 4 on my exam and I barely studied. It was like a really like I liked the science behind it. That's the only science I really liked. Like I liked science and I liked maths. I was good at it. That's why they recommended me for that program. But I like the nuts and bolts of music, like, oh, that's how that works, or oh, that's how this works. And I mean, audio engineering is something that is like super dope, and I have friends that do it, and they like record people all the time. They're like mixing and mastering these albums. I get to hear them before they're done. Like, oh, this guy's releasing this. You want to check this out? I'm like, oh, that's dope. So they like nerd out like in their basement, and I like hear these like fresh cuts of like, these cool musicians. So like all that kind of stuff is really fun and interesting too. And now it's like, to be honest, like musicians nowadays have to have a little bit of everything. Like there's no like, I can't just play the saxophone really well. Like I have to play the saxophone well. I have to be doing marketing. I have to make sure that I'm doing like all these like 4 or 5 different things to like make it happen. It's become an industry in that sense.
Yeah. I don't relish that idea. Like there's a part of me that at 40 wants to take the hard part away from everybody. Like I want to be like, leave the marketing to me, or like leave the mixing, just play. Like, cause I'm also a blogger aside from being a podcaster. And there's a part of me that wants to just write. And I would love to be able to just write. And I do. And like, it's a hobby for me, but like, if I wanted to be a full-time blogger, I got to be a full-time marketer too. And it's like, I don't know. Like I want to take that away from everybody else. Just be like, no, you just play. Like, I'll take care of the rest. Or like, you just write. I'll take care of the rest. And I think that we're doing disservices to our artists and our youth. And I don't, it's not like a sweeping statement, but like Mozart, once he started writing, didn't have to also promote himself, right? And it's just like, I know that that's one example, but like, Aerosmith, once they got signed, were done. Like they could write and tour, and any band from the 70s, like, or 80s or even 90s, once they get signed, they tour and they write. And yeah, I understand the music industry was broken. They didn't make a lot of money, but the one thing that the music industry did for them was they could write and play. And like, that's what they could do. And I feel like they get a bigger piece of the pie now, but they're also taking a lot of energy away from their art. And that's the part I don't like when I sit back and watch, an artist go on Twitter and be like, hey, everybody come out to my next show and I've got these CDs. Like, that's fine when you're on the mic in front of a captive audience of 30 people at a club. Yeah. But don't do that on the internet. Somebody else should be doing that. You should be writing. You should be practicing. Like, there's a part of me that wants to take that away from them, because they're losing you only have so much energy. Like I say that as a 40-year-old old man, crotchety man, like, but still, you still only have so much. And would you, if I were to ask you, would you like to go back in time and do everything yourself, or would you like to go back in time and play and write? Like,
yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, it's a double-edged sword though, right? Because we say that, but the people that are hustlers they get a chance to get their music out, and they may not be the most so sometimes like not even the most talented, but the most hardworking.
Yeah,
they rise to the top, right? So then there's it's a double-edged sword. So are we settling for artists that are working on 9 different things at the same time and getting their craft kind of watered down, or are we settling for these hardworking people that like sold CDs out of their trunks? You know what I mean? Like, and that's what it used to be, right?
Yeah.
But now all electronic, it's all Twitter, it's all this, it's all that. So I mean, there's no right or wrong. And actually nowadays, like it used to be, if you sold at a bajillion records, you were going to make a ton of money. Now, no one sells records.
Yeah.
They only sell singles. It's just streams, right? And you make all your money on tour, which is like crazy. Like I know a friend who knows a saxophone player for Bad Bunny. The saxophone player for Bad Bunny plays one song. He only has one song with a merengue band at the end. He makes like several $1,000s a show.
For one song.
Yeah. For when he just plays for 2.5 minutes, and he gets like, I think like Yeah, he makes. I don't want to divulge that, but
it's a pretty good gig. But I mean, at the same time, you got R.I.P. the guy who was in the E Street Band, who played. I feel like there are live shows I've seen like online and stuff where he'll just step into a song he's not on the record for, and just add a part in, right? So there's definitely these things. And look, I should probably say, because I know it's a disservice to my parents to not say this. I grew up in a music household, so it's not like I was just like discovering it from friends. Like my parents, I don't like to split them because it's not right to do, but like my dad was very Stones and my mom was very Beatles.
Oh, okay.
Despite the fact that my dad also had Beatles albums, and you know, it's all nebulous, right? But like I grew up with what I like to consider the classics. And I grew up in this household where like, you know, I knew about Traffic, right? Like, which is like, and I knew about Traffic when I was in those all of those bands, right? Like, so I was learning like Glad, on tenor sax, not because I was going to play it anywhere else, but because like I was listening to it at home. Right. And I was, you know, learning to play bass at the time and guitar and like all these other bands and stuff. But like, there were also concert albums. The Last Waltz is probably like, like for me, that's one of those like classic movies for me. And I learned about music in the home too. And the arts. I guess I grew up in an art household, you know, which is nice, but like not everybody gets that. And I understand that too. And that's a thing where it's like, okay, some people don't have a history. Some people need the older brother because it's not coming from their parents, or they need the section head to go like, well, I mean, you want to hear a killer tenor sax solo. Like, here's the thing, because you're not going to get it anywhere else. But like that, there's a part of that history we need to pass on, like as well. Like not to jump completely off the rails, but like how much contemporary or old, I don't know, like, I don't know what you call it. How much of that kind of music do you share with your students? You know,
contemporary as in like pop or contemporary?
I mean, just like, you know, Beatles, Stone, like deep cuts that they wouldn't normally hear like on a Chevy commercial now, apparently, you know, like just like, you know, like, oh, like, you know, this thing that, or, you know, older bands or like classic Dylan that nobody's ever heard of. Like, how much do you, so I guess that's contemporary, you know, like not non-marching band.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like there's not much time to do it in the classroom, but my friend has learned to do it in a subtle way. She has a playlist that just is rolling all the time.
Okay.
So if her kid walks into her class, they'll be like, what is this song? And she'll see that. Then she'll say, oh, that's Bela Fleck. Like he plays,
nice.
You know what I'm saying? Or they'll say like, oh, that's a crazy saxophone. Like, oh yeah, I played with him on da 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 da. He's from Japan. And like, she has like a really clever way of installing that in her room.
I like that.
Yeah, I can't do that because I'm going from building to building. So I travel as a teacher. So I don't get the chance to do that. But she's found and a lot of teachers employ that because then you never know. They're always listening. Kids are always listening. It'll be one thing that'll just perk their ears up and they'll hear about it. And the joy with that is that then they'll go home and they'll just YouTube the crap out of it.
Okay.
And they'll just type in that person's name and they'll just go, what's this one? And what's that one? And then they'll come the next day. And I like I showed kids like I'm doing Freddie Freeloader as part of jazz band. And the kid was like, so I heard 6 versions of it. The Miles Davis one is the original one, I know. But then I also heard that, and then they'll go down the rabbit hole of the internet or Spotify and find all these different versions of that one tune. And so like, that's like a good way to do it and incorporate it in the class. But otherwise, I don't get a chance to really be like, this is this album.
Do you get the question? Like, do people ask about your music? Like, because I'll be honest, I don't think I ever asked my music teachers or band directors about their musical taste.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you do. Sometimes they'll ask me if I like a certain artist. Like, they'll be like, oh, Mr. B, do you like Bad Bunny? Or say something like, oh, do you like Drake? Or they'll say things like that. And I'm like, yeah, I've listened to their music. Like, I think there's like merit in it, da 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 da. And I'll like give a very like somewhat political, sometimes my personal opinion or how I feel. But I think kids are interested in that because they want to, it kind of tells them like if you're hip or not, you know what I mean? Like, are you still with it?
Yeah.
because you're old. You're old to them after you graduate college. So you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I mean, yeah, no, trust me. I know that there was at least one band assistant that was like literally if 25, I'd be shocked. And it's like, yeah, that's an old person right there. Like you're sitting in class, like it's not even 8 years, like it's not even a decade between you, and you're like, that's an old person, right? Like, don't trust that person. Like, all right, okay, yeah, like at that point they're not. I don't know how it works out in other circles, but like in the band circle, in the band room, it felt like anybody who had a degree was like, they're out.
Yeah. They have responsibilities. We don't want to talk to them.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
but yeah, no, I mean they do, and sometimes I'm able to like say, hey, I like that artist too, but did you know that before that sample that they use in the song you like is really from this album? And so you find ways to tie it in so that they see like what they, you know what I'm saying, like where the things have come from, because now they're sampling 90s tunes in most rap and most hip hop. It's all 90s tunes that I grew up with are now the samples for these new songs that are coming out now in the 2020, right, 2020, 23, all that stuff. So it's like it's really wild to see the circle go around so fast, right? Like, because I think when we were growing up, right, in the 90s, we were hearkening back to the 60s and the 70s, like it was a long time ago. So like we're talking like 30 years, but like I guess it's 30 years now.
It's 30 years now, yeah. I mean, I was gonna say it's
a loop.
It's
yeah, but the access kids have to music is way better than
yeah, I mean that's the other thing too. I mean, I know you could talk about the artists and how they have to tour now for it, but like I think my appreciation for music would be vastly different if it was more than what I could afford to buy, what I could choose on my 5 free Columbia House things, or like, what my parents had in either, I mean, because at that time, my parents still had a vinyl collection, a small cassette collection, and a CD collection.
Right.
But like everybody had that, and there was a lot of overlap where it's like I still have this cassette and this vinyl, but I bought it on CD for better fidelity back when that was a thing. And so it's not like we had 300. It's like, no, you got like, if you got 100 of each, and you're probably like, variance is probably like, you don't have 300 different things to choose from, right? Like, so all right, okay. So, and I remember burning CDs, and I remember the radio played a massive, influence on all of us, but, it's one of the things I liked about band was while everyone else in the school was like, what's on TRL? What's on MTV? We were all like, so-and-so burned this like deep cut from some Rush bootleg, and we're just passing it around the band room, right? And it's just, it was still like a blank cassette that it was like, no, there's something on this, like, listen to this.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like it's almost our own little world.
Yeah. And I think there's something cool about that, I think, right? Something niche about that, like the fact that like it was that CD you made at that one time, and there's something like how you share music and how it's like word of mouth and like very speakeasy kind of, and that's how like music always was, right? And it kind of still has that, even though the accessibility is different, but it like, have you heard of this indie pop star? Have you heard of this person that's coming up? Have you heard of this stuff like that? Like some of my students knew who Bad Bunny was before he was a big deal. He like was doing local shows in the area that I was living, right? So like they knew about him before they knew him when, kind of stuff. And like there's different like ways, but like I think that whole like that I don't know, that like, hey, have you heard like of this guy? This guy. You've heard of Thundercat, the bass player?
Yeah.
It's why, like, I mean, I went to see him live. It's insane. But like, when you're like, oh, have you heard of this guy? Oh, he's so cool and this and that. And then they'll just jump in. So I don't know. And being able to listen to all that music that these kids have now, which I'm so jealous of, like they can just look up like what India's top 5, charts are, and they can just like look them up and then hear them. And
it's not even that. Like I as a bass player / guitarist, I'm a rhythm guitarist, right? I can't solo to save my life. Just for anybody wondering. And that drum kit in my basement is for basic beats. I couldn't solo to save my life either. But like, it's one of those things where like I had a friend who was really, really good, and it was like, I want to learn this song. and I don't have $5 for the newest guitar mag, and I don't have $5 for a back catalog guitar mag.
Right.
You know, the Internet Guitar tab was not the library it is today. It's like, I have one friend with perfect pitch. Can you help me learn this song? Or like, I know there were some people in my class that would ask like the assistant band director if he could help at least identify chords and stuff. And it was one of those things where, yeah, you know, maybe in the first 5 minutes of class, you get them to talk about, you know, contemporary music or even something from the 70s that we had just discovered. Like, because, you know, everybody's always, you know, we talk about the cycle, but like everybody's always rediscovering stuff. Like, so high school is when people are finding the Beatles often. And so like, you know, it's just that thing. But if you don't have a friend with perfect pitch, and at the time, if you didn't have money for the magazine that the tab was in, you're not learning that song. Like you just
no. I mean, but I mean, I must say that's where music theory comes in, right? Because then, you know, it's like there's like a formula to those chords, and you kind of like know where they are. But yeah, it's tough. Like I mean, the arrangements that I made for my bands, like for my groups and stuff like that, all of it was luckily because I could find MIDI files and stuff like that online. I'm trying to think back, and then I would dissect them and rip them apart because I knew the theory. Like, oh, really, that's this chord, or really, that's this, and I should just revoice that, right? But yeah, I don't know.
I have a loose memory of like 135, 145.
Yeah.
You know, it's it's not all there, but like it's still kind of there.
Yeah. Like they say, it's like riding a bike, right? You never really forget. All this kind of stuff. That's the beautiful thing about music also. Like I see all these videos of these older people that don't remember their kids, but they do remember how to play the piano.
Okay.
And these people that don't remember like how to and music therapy is now a thing because of that, like helping people speak again. There's people that like, you know, and all that the power of music to do that and transform and to help. I mean, I don't know. That's one of those qualities that I think has. It's just stuck in you. That's why you learn the alphabet, right? Everyone learns the alphabet. A, B, C, D. You know, like all these songs that you remember when you were little. And you can sometimes, when you hear a song, you could pinpoint where you were when you heard it.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? Like all those things. Like, I mean, it's just such a crazy thing. And there's a reason why it's transcended time, right? There's a reason why we can still listen to the Beatles and listen to and find something new about them as you go on, right? Music that transcends is like, yeah, those are the classics. Those are the hits. Those are what every composer wants. You know what I mean? Music that goes through time, right? That will withstand the power of time.
So before I forget to ask, when I say like, all right, I'm gonna go play. Like I have a range of instruments I still actually play. I guess the tenor sax is now a collectible for me. I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to ever get rid of it, but. You know, I have a choice, you know, it's acoustic, electric, or one of my many basses. And I know that inherently, and I think a lot of the people around me, like my partner, she knows that, and what have you. But if I was like, Miguel, what do you want to like go play for a half hour? Like, what are you picking up? Like, what's your go-to? Because I obviously I just listed a bunch of instruments, and obviously I could pick up any one of them depending on how I'm feeling. But like, what's your go? Like, do you have a go-to?
Yeah, so my go is definitely saxophone. That's like my primary instrument. I still play it all the time. That's my big instrument. I think depending on the gig, I have all four: the alto, tenor, and the baritone and soprano. Okay. I used to play in a quartet. And I play a lot of Latin music gigs, so I play with like people that come through town. Like I don't have enough time to find gigs. People just call me because they need someone for like the weekend kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
So or I play in a couple wedding bands, that kind of stuff. So, but alto, tenor, sax, those are the ones that I'm usually playing the most. I do like playing bari a lot because it just has such a big fat sound. So I don't get called for many of those gigs. So it's only just for practice. It's only just for fun most of the time. And then, but that's my main instrument. Like the chordal instruments, they never really stuck on me for whatever reason. So like guitar or, but like I can play all the band instruments just fine. And I can get around on the piano. I can like read a lead sheet. I play a lot of like hand percussion had percussion too, and actually I marched in the drum corps, so I know my concert percussion really well too. So, but my go-to is definitely saxophone. So I try, and like my worst instrument is probably flute. I'm terrible at flute. I should not say that and advertise that, but that's what it is.
Well, how are you on the other brass stuff like trombone, trumpet, tuba? Like
trumpet I have to teach with because it's very, so I sound okay. I sound like a mediocre high schooler on trumpet.
Okay.
Because it's easy to teach with. I just pick it up and play, as opposed to like saxophone. You got like what to read, and you got to figure out what's going on. You got to leave it around. You know, I don't like leaving it out just in case a kid bumps into it. But a trumpet it's a metal. It's like to run over the vehicle for it to be bad. You know what I mean? So I don't mind it being out. You know what I mean? So yeah, but yeah, I get around on trumpet the best, and trombone and I get around on those instruments just fine. Again, just like a mediocre high school. I'm better than my students for now.
All right, that's fair. I mean, that's a good place to start, because you want. I mean, the other thing is like you always want them to be like. I remember my middle school music teacher more than any, who was versatile on everything. I think we all know one of those teachers, and it was just like that's. You know, I'm 5 minutes early for my saxophone lesson, and he's up there like just blowing on a trumpet. Like, just like, it's like, what is okay? All right, this is just not fair. Like, okay. And like my friend's coming in next for a drum lesson, and it's like, all right, okay, I get it. Like that's
that's what you learn, right? And that comes with time. Like I had to sit and practice the trumpet. I remember I started teaching fourth grade as my first job. I was teaching fourth and fifth grade band. Trumpet players were better than I was on trumpet. So I was, and they would make fun of me too. They're like, "Oh, you can't play that note." I'm like, "No, I can't play that note, not yet." Then I practiced, I got really good. They're like, "You got so good." I was like, "It's called practice. Kids. Yeah, you guys don't know. You guys just don't know how to do it, right?" Like as you get older, you're like, "Oh, I can skip all those other steps. I know how to do all that."
Yeah, you know what? I'll be honest. I don't know how much I practiced at home. Like it's just.
But you were playing all the time, though. That's what got you good.
Yeah.
Right, you're playing all year round, right? From marching band all the way to pep band, you played all year, symphonic band. You know what I'm saying? So like, if you keep playing, you can live off those chops for what you're doing. Like if you were going to audition at a college, it would be a different, or audition for a band or anything like that. It would be a different game.
That's fair,
right? But I think if you're playing all the time, that's half of the battle.
Yeah, so, I mean, I never really thought about the fact that like, no, I'm definitely playing all the time, and it's just like you know, those after school activities just kind of, they add up, right? Like even if you're fooling around for a little bit, like at a certain point you're in the band room, everybody's got their instruments. No matter how much you're fooling around, even for a student-led thing, you all have your stuff there. Like you might as well play something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, kids live in the band room. That's like a thing. Like
look, and you're in this age group with me where we were hanging out in the band room when Blues Traveler 4 really broke, and there was always one kid who knew the harmonica solo. There was always like maybe two, but there was always one kid in like every band room that I've ever talked to people about that like could actually play that solo, and everybody be like, come on. And the other one was there was always one trombone player who could play the trombone line from Wrong Way from Sublime. Like there was always one kid that could like do the popular contemporary music in the class, and it was just like, all right, that's cool. Like that's
yeah. I mean, you always have a couple of I know right now my trumpet player started playing the harmonica part to Piano Man. Like I was like, what are you doing? And he was like, I gotta learn this. I was like, why do you have to learn this? Like I don't understand. And he's like, I don't know, I just feel like I do. I feel like I got this harmonica, and why not? And I was like, whatever. He's a funky kid. Like this kid is a good trumpet player, but he's always into all sorts of music. Music has like lit up his life quite much. So he's trying to find new things. But yeah, that's the thing. Like people forget that it's a reinforced activity, right? So like when you're around it a lot, you might not think about all the times you practice, but you went to band rehearsal, you were in band class, you were at an extracurricular band thing. That's how you get good. Like the more you play, that's why I encourage all my students to just like do as many things as possible inside and outside of school. Because the more they have their face of the instrument, the better they're going to get. Like the progress is going to be there. You know, that what they say, like the 10,000 hours is what makes you proficient, right? But that's so I tell them, I'm like, you're like, I don't have more fingers than you or more brain cells I don't have these refined all like crazy skills that allow me to play, like the instrument. I might have like maybe like a natural affinity to it. Great. But that just has made me practice more. It's like I just have more hours on this instrument than you do. And if you put in those hours, you're going to catch up.
Well, and it's a lot easier to put in those hours in the social setting of like a jazz band, a pep band, than just sitting in your room with a sheet of music, which look great. Don't get me wrong. Like you do have to sit in your room with the sheet of music at some point, but the more times you get to play without that, the better like you are.
Yeah, it's way more fun in a group. And the social aspect, like I found that out this through the pandemic. Like a lot of my teacher friends are like, oh man, what I miss most is all the competitions that my band does. And I know that's the reason why these kids want to join, and like we don't get to do them. And then they allowed like partial like band classes to partially come in. So like it was like A day and B day, so it was half class versus half class. And they asked the kids, would you want to come in half class and perform and play, right? Spread out and all that stuff. And they're like, man, my half or whatever, like his cohort didn't have his good friend, so he chose to go to just purely virtual band class because he only wanted to be in band because of his friends. So I said, man, isn't it crazy that you're discovering like the social aspect of band is what really keeps them there? Yeah. And he didn't get it. He was like, what do you mean? Yeah. And I was like, so I was like, no, but that's what it is. That social aspect keeps them there, right? Whether you're there to like, because you're, hanging out with this one girl you liked, or you're there because you like, you look up to someone, you're like, oh man, they're really cool, they're really great players, or you heard them play and you want to be a part of that, whatever it is. Like the social aspect, the people keep you coming back. Some of my best friends, like Eric was in band, and our friend Darlene was in band, and we're still friends to this very day. Like we visit each other, and all of our like milestones, like we're all at all of them. So they were my band friends, and that's kept us together for 30 years at this point, for some of us. So it's crazy. It's a good thing. I think it's a great outlet. It's a shame it's the first thing that gets cut in public school. And you know what I mean? Like for the arts, like it just feels like it's where some people literally find home, you know what I mean? And or a sense of belonging, and they just like rip that out of their schooling. So I'm fortunate to be in a place that's not like that. They want more of it, which is great, but I hear some horror stories from stuff getting cut and things like that. And I think about these poor kids who might not have an outlet, who might not have that connection with their band teacher, who might not get to experience what you and I both experience, which is like that culture that I don't know. Like it's like an intangible that I think is I think necessary for all kids, because it won't be sports all the time, and it won't be math all the time, and it won't be science. You have to take those classes. Band is an elective. Art is an elective, right? Photography is an elective. And these are those things that they get to choose, a few things they get to choose when they're in high school. So that's a shame we're removing them from kids. And in turn, they don't get the experiences of listening to all this music and like listening to all this stuff. They just get stuck, which I never really found how people can live under a rock and not like music or anything like that. But they exist. Like I know people who don't like jazz, and I'm like, what? It's like America's only contribution to music at all. Like, and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's literally the only thing created in the USA in music, and you don't like it? Like, I don't understand. So, I mean, that's just how that is. But yeah.
I've spoken before about how the arts are important, and you just heard Miguel talk about how the arts are important. You can't spell humanities without human. Be it band or painting or poetry, the arts and humanities can not only be a lifelong passion for some, but can be opportunities to get to know ourselves. It doesn't matter what avenue in the arts is your thing, and you don't have to create it. You can just consume it. The point is that personally and culturally, our relationship with art matters, but don't get too caught up in the race. You don't have to enjoy everything. You don't have to be up on all of it. Just consume what makes you happy. I myself am spending more time with the album, as in listening to an album from start to finish. No singles, no shuffle mode. And I've been enjoying just getting reacquainted with an art form and music that I legitimately completely lost touch with. So, what are you going to do? Thanks for listening to The Palmer Files, episode 114. And now for the official business. The Palmer Files releases every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. If you're still listening, I encourage you to join the discussion. You can find all related ways to contact myself and my guest, Miguel Bolivar, in the show notes. The music for this episode was provided by Henno Heiter. Email can be sent to this show at thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. And remember, your home for all things Agent Palmer is agentpalmer.com. All right, Miguel, do you have one final question for me?
Yeah. So if you would have gone the music route, what would have been your dream gig? Like, what would have been what you would want to do in an ideal world?
So my gut instinct is to say, I want to be the guy on the other side of the glass. Like, that's my gut reaction, is like, I want to be the other guy on the other side of the glass, you know, have people come into my studio and record. I can help mic them up, you know, in a perfect, like, brain dream scenario. There's like a side room with like instruments galore where I could be like, all right, okay, you want to play an acoustic song? Here's 7 different acoustics for you to try. Let's see which one sounds better. And maybe we can layer them, like just that kind of, there was an element. Now look, I got my start on small Tascam Porta studios in basements, right? We're talking Radio Shack mics, not the greatest. Yeah, I think there was one XLR mic between all of my friends. Right. I owned it, but everything else was whatever. So I mean, I come from that. And so like the idea of having a clean big board and like a soundproofing. There's an immense thing. And I am, despite the fact that I host this show, right, I'm more of a behind the scenes guy. I would rather be wearing black in the stage crew than be on the stage. I think there's a part of that. The other thing, which I've only recently discovered because of this podcast, is I don't mind editing as far as like manipulating sound in that kind of way. But I think you need to know that while you're recording. I mean, there's a part of me that I don't want to say perfectionist, because I'm not. And the proof that I'm not a perfectionist is that I release this show every 2 weeks like clockwork. If I was a perfectionist, some of these shows I'd still be working on. Like, I don't know about that.
Well, that's the mixing and mastering guy. That wouldn't be you, right? You are the, it's funny that you say this, but it's very like I find that the dynamic that we have right now is what I would have if I was when I've been to recording studios. Yeah. You would be in my ear, and you'd be like, all right, I'll take that again, Miguel. That was just terrible. Okay, all right, I got you. Like this, and then there's like jokes back and forth like that. It's very similar to this podcast. It's funny enough.
It's very much, I think, what I would like. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's one of those like independently wealthy things. Like I'd open a studio and just invite people. Because like I don't know a lot of people that would just want to record stuff. But I feel like if you opened it and was like, all right, it's just like an hourly rate and you get me, like, like one of those things, like, that'd be cool. And I think the other thing is like, the more you do it, like that, this is 114, I think, if my math is right. So like I'm getting better at this, and the process for editing and manipulating audio is
Yeah.
I'm getting better, and like so I think there's some of that, but I don't know where this came from, but like I like the idea of helping people. Not, I look at it. I played in bands. I like cover bands and rock bands, and like a bassist for some of them, but I was in a 2-man band in college, which was me on guitar singing and my roommate drummer who also sometimes sang, right? Like, and there's nowhere to hide. So it's not like I'm afraid to be out front. I just prefer to help you go out there and do the thing. Like, I'll shine the spotlight and run the sound. My natural state would be to shine the spotlight on somebody else. And I think that's kind of where it's like, I just want to be the guy on the other side of the glass. Like that's cool. Like I'll fiddle with the dials. I'll even fiddle with the amps in the room, but you can start recording once I'm out of the room.
I mean, that's very giving of you. I think that's really nice. I mean, a part of the reason why I like playing, especially even in cover stuff or pop stuff, is because when you play someone's favorite song and they've had 3 or 4 drinks at the wedding and they point at you because you're playing the solo that they remember from, we play Time of Our Life, crazy saxophone, and they're just like all pretending to play the saxophone next to you and they're wasted at the party. It's like a feeling like no other. Like you made somebody's day.
Yeah.
That's incredible. You know what I mean? It's an incredible feeling. So, I mean, that's similar to what you're saying. Like, it like it has that catharsis, right?
Yeah. And I'm still, I'm 40. I feel like I'm still 20 in my mind's eye. And even if I was 40 in my mind's eye, I still feel like I'm trying to figure my place in the world still.
Yeah.
And I think anybody who says they've got it figured out is lying to you.
Right.
And at the very least, they're probably just lying to themselves more than you. But like I'm all right with the fluidity of it. Like if I get to do that, cool. And if I don't, I can do it in my basement still. Like I don't have a glass, but like I still have all this stuff. Like I got a mixer right next to me. We can hook up some stuff. You can come over whenever you want, and we can just, you can lay down some tracks. That's fine. Like, I guess I say this by also saying this. I have one of my father's I have a lot of friends. And I use the term loosely because it's people I'm friendly with, but also people I want to hang out with, that are my parents' age, so they've got decades on me. And one of them, when I had lunch with him, was like, yeah, I've been writing songs for 20 years. I'm like, I want to help you record them. I want to help you figure out how to, and look, it's been, now almost half a year. Like it was very warm. It was very summer when we had that lunch. But like every time we've spoken since then, which is not, maybe monthly, I bring it up. I'm not going to let it go. I want to help make this happen. And I whether it will or won't, life will decide, but it's not going to be because I forgot. And if you had said the same thing, I feel like, I might have been like, all right, well, I don't know. I just, there's a part of me that feels like if I can help people do the thing, then get out of your own way. Help the person do the thing.
Yeah.
Fair enough, man. Like,
yeah, dude. I think that's great. I think that's beautiful. I mean, I think if everyone did a little bit of that, just a little bit of that. Like this was just kind and was able to just say, hey, you need a little bit of this, as opposed to letting them suffer, as opposed to letting them sit in whatever it is and make things worse. Just that little bit of that nudge could probably elevate so many people's well-being everywhere. You know what I mean?
And there's also an element of finding out, like, if it don't work, it don't work. Like
yeah. So what?
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's fine. Now it's cool. Like I'm not, I didn't tell this guy we're going to record your album and it's going to set, like I said, no, we'll just put down some tracks, setting expectations like this. This is a hobby. We're going to have some fun. We're going to hang out and maybe record a rhythm track in like 4 hours of cracking jokes and like maybe even doing some music jokes and playing like cover songs. It's fine. We don't have, we're not on the clock. We're just having a good time. And if over the course of the next year or two, we put together a few songs, great.
And what do you think has stopped them from doing it? Is it just time or coordinating it, or are they afraid? Or
I don't know. We didn't actually get into the like psychology of it, but if I was to guess, I think part of it is a time aspect. He's semi-retired now, but I think the other part of it is, and this is the thing I have learned, he needs a me. Like, he needs somebody who's going to be like, hey, do you want to hang out and do this? Like, even if I don't bring the microphones and the mixers and the computer even if I don't bring any recordings, I'm just like, hey, let's maybe share some of that stuff. Like, he's done it for himself. He's never shared it with anybody. I think the first step would be sharing it with somebody. And the second step would be like, hey, let's lay it down. But, I have a weekly blog, but there's still plenty of stuff I've written that I've never shared with anybody. But there's also nobody I've had lunch with that's like, hey, maybe you should share that with somebody. And I think once somebody says that to you,
then it opens that up.
It opens it up.
I wonder what his music's about.
I don't know. I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited about it. So when I see him in a couple weeks, actually, it's going to be more reminders. I just won't let it go. Like, at this point, I'm in.
Yeah, it's a composer's nightmare, right? To like, because when you write music and you share it, you're very vulnerable, right? Because you don't know what they're gonna think.
Yeah,
they're gonna judge you or judge the music if you think it's good or bad. You've got to like kind of like you just buckle down and just hope that it's right. That could be part of the trepidation. Like, oh, what if he thinks it sucks, or what if he thinks it's like cliche, or what if he thinks it's da 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 da, or whatever. Like, yeah. So maybe some of that, but that's so funny. I think that's great. I mean, whatever. Like, you create a safe space.
Yeah.
And see if it turns out, and if not, worst case scenario, like, nothing happens, but at least you talked about it. Maybe it gets them a step further to writing another song yeah, man. That's great. I think that's cool. I think it's a really good thing. Like, that'd be a pretty sweet gig.
I'm excited for it. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, man. Hope he comes through with those tunes. That'd be crazy. You'd be surprised what some people have hidden in there, like some of the stuff. Like, even Eric has been like, "Oh, this is the circular file. Like, this is where I keep everything that like." And I write music too. There's plenty of hard drive of things that have failed and don't sound as good, and like these will never see the light of day. Like that kind of thing,
dude. Since oh man, I want to go back. I gotta figure this out. Since mid-October, I've had a riff of some kind in my head that it's not that I can't musically figure out where to go, but like I know the options, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I pick up the acoustic, I play it a little bit because I'm like, maybe today's the day I'll add to it. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with it. Who knows?
You could do like Beethoven would do. If every little riff he would do, you'd write it down on like a piece of paper. And
there's a part of me that's like that. Like I it's still months now, still in my head, but like there's a part of me that's like, well, you get busy, don't pick up the guitar for a while, and you're like, what was that?
Yeah, that's the worst. It was so cool, and now it's gone. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like,
all right, okay, fine. When we're done, I'll lay it down. Just get it out.
Yeah. And then you can always just save it.
Yeah.
And then what Beethoven would do is then, like, if he gets stuck, he would go back to his notes and go like, oh wait, I can base this movement off of this, and he would circle it. So you would find like things, and he would circle and put like violin concerto and circle it, and we put like Symphony 3 third movement, and like, it was like pretty. I mean, also genius, whatever, but still, you know what I mean? Like, but still, I mean, it may be something that may be worth it to you to keep it in like your voice memos in your phone, and then you maybe come up with another lick, and then realize that lick goes with that one.
Could be.
Who knows, right?
Something to think about.
Not an easy teach yourself. Trying to help.